All right, guys, today's video is on trace mineral shortages. A lot of times minerals like this can be disguised, and you may not even know it unless you do a comprehensive soil test to see where your trace minerals are. I mean, there's probably around 70 trace minerals that deer need at some point to help them grow big and strong, or help add a little more structure to those antlers. I know a lot of people focus on that, but the main purpose of this video is to show you the value of just one of these. And my ground has been notorious for this for years, and that is the trace mineral boron. Boron is also called boric acid. You can also find boron in borax, like the hand cleaner borax. You can buy that at the Dollar General or some of the smaller stores depending on where you live. But the borax does contain boron, and I have treated my food plot with it before, and it works great. I know it sounds weird, a hand cleaner works, but it does really help a lot. My Facebook group can attest to this. When I had clover plot issues like crazy, I could fertilize, and it would kind of green up and look like it was about to do something, and then the clover plot would die. And that's because there was a lack of boron in my soil. This is boric acid or boron. Extremely small amounts, guys. When I use the term trace, that means small amounts. You can't just overload it like nitrogen or potassium. You can kill your plot if you take too much of a trace mineral and apply it into one area. So be very careful with this. I cannot stress enough that if your soil is boron deficient, do not overload your food plot with it. You will kill it. I guarantee you. It will turn poisonous. You have to put out that sweet zone amount. And just to give you an idea how light of amount I'm putting out here, I broadcast this anywhere from 2 to 3 pounds per acre. I do not go over 3. 3 is the maximum that I put out here. That is how light. You're basically dusting the ground when you're doing it that light. All you do is, obviously there's going to be different ways to achieve that goal. You can hand broadcast. I've seen people put them in leaf blowers and blow a cloud of dust all over the food plot. There's different methods to doing it. It's just however you think you can get it done. So I hand broadcast, and I had just finished up doing it, except for one little area here, and that's right here. So I can use that for a demonstration on how light I'm actually broadcasting this. So all I'm doing is taking about that much. That is very light amounts, and I'm simply broadcasting it into the area that's deficient. Now, how in the world do I know that my ground is deficient if I haven't done a soil test? Well, there's all kinds of sign and evidence that there is something wrong with your ground, and I know you're going to spend a little more money. I buy this in 50-pound bags. That cost me roughly $110 tax and all for a 50-pound bag. That will last me for years here. I can get a long time out of a 50-pound bag. But the cost of that overrides the money you are wasting in fertilizer. Boron is so important that, let's say you've broadcasted 2,000 pounds of fertilizer over a larger plot. But if your boron level is deficient or severely deficient like mine, you're probably going to waste about 60% of that fertilizer. The lower your boron level becomes, the more money you waste. Boron stimulates roots. It helps the plant to function properly, so it gets your root function closer toward 100%. This affects water intake for the plants. This affects calcium intake for the plants and the other nutrients. So if your food plot is being dumped on with fertilizer and you've got it as green as a gourd, you can mask the symptoms of a boron deficiency, but your plants will still never grow as intended. Fertilizer can hide things and fertilizer can show things. You just never know what's going to happen with the ground you're in. And one of the clues that I look for is not only how the plant is growing, but the color I see in the plant. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples here. We have, and this name escapes me, but I actually have my plot mixed with this. Deer actually love this, and some people think this is a weed, but deer heavily browse this. So if you're looking at this, there's actually nothing wrong with this particular plant. Everything looks nice, everything looks green, and if you swore up and down there's a deficiency somewhere, you're probably looking a little too hard. But there is one little clue in the next plant over. So we move over here to this one, same exact species, but now we see something a little different. Now we start seeing purple in the stem. That is a boron deficiency. This is a morning glory weed or vine, and it's supposed to be green. But look here, we have purple, guys. Boron deficiency. That is the key sign into figuring out that particular trace mineral. And I have it all over the place. Here, deer vetch, another good example. We have a whole spot right here that is boron deficient. Actually, this whole part of the ground's deficient, but right here, see all those off colors? It's purple. If you're colorblind, it may look a different color, but that is purple. That is not supposed to be purple, guys. That is supposed to be green. Therefore, this plant has a nutrient deficiency, and it will never reach peak potential unless I apply boron to this soil. My Facebook group has seen how boron affects a food plot. Pull up another weed here. And my clover plot is always the first victim of a boron deficiency. I have worked my tail off in the past trying to make a clover plot last for more than 2 years. Never made it. Couldn't figure out what was going on. I fertilized it, did everything thought I was doing right, and initially the clover looked good, and then within 4 or 5 weeks, it started quickly going downhill. I mean, fast. And I finally started doing some research into alternatives, and I come up with the trace mineral part of the ground, which I hadn't focused on in the past. And then I realized how bad my soil was. So when I started focusing on trace minerals, I did a soil test here years ago, before I even started the Facebook group, and I did a comprehensive test, and I came back with all kinds of shortages in trace minerals. And even my nitrogen potassium was off the mark. Sulfur was bad, magnesium was bad. This ground needed a lot of work. It was acidic, you name it. So I went out and purchased, oh gosh, I'd say over 500 pounds of trace mineral, broadcasted it into the plot, except the trace mineral didn't contain enough boron for me. So I went out and bought the boric acid, which is that 50-pound bag I mentioned earlier, applied it to my clover plot, and within 3 days of applying it to the clover plot, it flat out exploded. And within 7 days, it was magnificent looking. I mean, I'd never seen a clover plot up here like this, and I had tried for years to get something even close to that, and it lasted 4 or 4.5 years before it finally gave out again. And that was because I wasn't able to get enough boron in at the time to save it, and it died. Now this ground has been converted to soil improvements. These new plants are already showing me that same deficiency still here. The amazing thing to me is over here where the ground has been restored now, the boron level is doing so much better. I apply, I would say, basically I'm just literally throwing a pinch of it out everywhere I walk in there. It is, the purple color has practically vanished in there. There's only a handful of places I find in here anymore that have a color issue, and the soybean really won't reflect that. Each plant has a different way it's affected. And the boron itself, I'm telling you right now, guys, is the most common trace mineral shortage around. It is, you need to think of boron, I know this may sound funny, but boron is the Viagra in the plant world. If you can get your boron levels up to where they need to be, and this ties into my production video I shot, your production goes out the roof. These plants want to reproduce. It increases the volume of seed that they produce. It increases the flower rates. It also increases my soybean output. It affects every species in here. And if you look up there, that's my 2 Russian mammoth sunflowers up there. They are smoking my experimental strip because it is a different sunflower. I'm trying to stress that. It is a different sunflower. But when I apply boron to those guys up there and I give it adequate fertilizer, I can grow seed heads 24 inches across or bigger. Those get massive. And boron helps me to maximize that particular type of production. Guys, if you're a corn planter, you want to squeeze more food out of the same amount of ground. If you don't have the right boron level in your soil, you're probably going to notice your corn is not completely pollinated. I did grow corn in here, but I've quit that. The corn, I used to put it down here about half the width of that soybean plot right there. And then I would run it like a screen wall up this way. So I wouldn't have a very wide strip of corn through here. And usually when you start thinning out your corn like that, your pollination rate goes way down. You start having corn that has, and this is a classic sign of boron deficiency too in corn. The corn is only maybe 60% pollinated, 70, 80, maybe 90 on a good year. And I put out boron in here and I had a 99 to 100% pollination rate. I was able to up my corn production by 40%. And I even saw corn stalks, instead of growing 1 or 2 ears, started growing 3 and 4 ears a stalk. So not only did I actually get a better pollination rate, but I doubled, in some cases, my food output because the boron level was sufficient. It is amazing what happens when you have one trace mineral that is not functioning right in the ground. And because of that trace mineral deficiency, which is all over the farm, it is also all over the woods, my neighbor's property, it is everywhere around here. No matter where I drive, I see purple in people's yards. I see purple in people's hay fields. And I'm sitting there thinking, boron, guys, put boron out and it'll fix it. And it is amazing the turnaround that this plot has made. And my deer are going to get larger because the nutritional level is raised through this little trace mineral. So I hope that helps you. And I plan to do some other videos down the road on deficiencies. And I always look at it this way, guys. If your ground does not have it, your deer's not going to have it. You're not magically going to produce something out of thin air that's just going to grow a giant buck. You have to work at this if you want that goal. And yes, a lot of luck plays into this. And genetics, which is always a focus when it comes to growing healthy deer. I will tell you this, I always thought genetics was the king. I have changed my positioning on that, and now nutrition to me is king. It is always going to be king to me now. Genetics will filter itself out or show itself if you focus on your food plot health. So if you're screaming that you only have a bunch of small deer, all you have to do is fix your soil and give it time, and it will change everything for you. All right, guys, if you like this content, hit that like and subscribe button. And I plan to bring some more videos for you to help you out. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to comment below. If I don't know the answer, I can try to do some research for you. And we'll see what happens with the channel as it continues to grow. And I do appreciate everyone that's here and the questions that are asked. You all have a great day.